after a while, after a couple of days, and I got that text message from him, and then right after it, there was another text message that said, "We got this quote from Barry, and we put it on a meme.
Yeah.
And we wanted to know if we could use it." And it was my picture and a quote that I only gave to Barry Weiss in a meme.
So let me show this. So So this is the quote in the meme, and this is the quote that you gave Barry Weiss that she was supposed to use in the article that she was supposed to write about you, that never ended up getting published. And Buy-in's got it in a meme to do marketing for FAIR.
FAIR, yes. And I just was like, what have I gotten myself into? And at that time, I just took control of the situation, and I told my lawyers, I told everybody involved, I'm not working with him. I'm not working with FAIR. I don't care what the situation is anymore. And I stopped answering. There may have been one or two text messages on another thread. And I, like I said, if I did answer, it was, just a one word something, and I just said, no, but I didn't say anything to him because the money was still out there, and he could have shut the money off. But I felt very betrayed by Barry. Because, because it was like, I trusted a reporter I trusted a reporter that told me that, who everybody told me was really reputable, and, and she's beloved, and you know what I mean, and all of these things. And I gave her an interview, and my interview ends up in the hands of somebody else to promote an organization that I have nothing really to do, that does, you know what I mean, that I'm not a part of. Like, why is that okay? And they didn't tell me that she was on the board of directors. I didn't even know that.
Well, no one knew that. No one knew that Barry Weiss was on the board of directors until like last week. So FAIR is very public about their board of advisors, because their board of advisors are all these famous intellectuals that are intellectualizing about this stuff all the time. And they use them for PR for the organization. They use them to raise money for the organization. It's all fine, well, and good. Barry Weiss is obviously on their board of advisors. It's public on the website. But like this whole thing started because Deb and Justice and I did a video responding to FAIR's atrocious letter to the DOJ in response to them basically trying to label parents as domestic terrorists. And basically in that video, we kind of were like, who is on FAIR's board of directors? Who approved this letter? And then we started looking for who was on FAIR's board of directors, couldn't find it anywhere. And it turns out we ended up getting initial filings from the organization. Barry Weiss is on their board of directors.
I'm looking at the chat, and I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional, but I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything.
And you shouldn't have had to. This was an organization whose mission should be, like, as I understood it, to help people like you. In this circumstance, you shouldn't have to do background on all of these people. It's just not the way it should work. Jenny's getting inky with it, says, but if Barry never published the article, how was it a quote? And why are they using her for their marketing? I thought it wasn't to be a quid pro quo. I think that that's a really good question. If we're talking about an organization that has now raised over $100,000 for you, that is kind of like holding the $100,000 plus out like a carrot, and all of a sudden Barry, who was supposed to write an article about your case to help you, like doesn't use any of the stuff you gave her, then a quote ends up in Buy-in's hands that he wants to use as marketing purposes when he's still got the $100,000 hanging over you.
And she did use a quote. It just wasn't that one. You know what I mean? And then I was like, And I didn't understand how in the world did my quote that I gave her and I only told her end up on this meme.
Yeah. Yeah.
Aren't journalists supposed to kind of be protective about the interviews that they do and only you know do with the interview what they, you know what I mean, what the purpose of the interview was for? Isn't there some sort of journalistic, integrity that says, don't give your don't give your interviews, the person you're interviewing, their quotes to somebody else to do, you know what I mean?
Well, I'll say this. I don't know. Like,
I don't know.
I don't know. Like, I'm not a journalist, but also I'll say this. In the course of the last week, I've talked to over a dozen people who have had similar and sometimes more disturbing accounts of what's gone on in this organization. I haven't released any of it. And I specifically, and you didn't even ask, I made very sure that you wanted to talk about this publicly before we did that. You wanted to talk about it last week. I was like, hold up.
We waited a long time to discuss this because the implications could be severe. But you know what is wrong with fucking over somebody who has nothing to lose? Mm-hmm. There ain't nothing you can do to that person. What's it gonna do? Sue me? Sue me. You know what I own? I own a raggedy ass PT Cruiser with the check engine lights on. There's a nail in one of the tires. The front bumper is falling off. He can have it. Mm-hmm. He can have my dirty drawers and try to sell them on eBay because that is as good as it's gonna get if you want to sue me for something. Mm-hmm. I ain't got Nathan.
Yeah.
So,
and this isn't for fun. It's like I just want to remind people. This is she has a precedent-setting legal case against CRT in schools. This is something that, to be quite frank, the entire anti-CRT community should be rallying around to raise money for you, to help you. No quid pro quo, no I'll scratch my back, you scratch yours. This is something that they should all just do because it is the right thing to do for everyone. And this is part of why I'm so burned on this whole thing. It's like you are one of the very last people who should be treated this way.
And, I understand. I'm an American. You do something for me, I do something for you. I understand that. But I was ready to do that. Had that article come out, I'd have done whatever they said. I would have done, maybe not whatever they said, but, I would have done something. You know what I mean? If that article had come out. Because to me, that was just kind of showing me that whatever I was kind of thinking and feeling and all of that stuff, it was in my head. And they really were there to help me. Mm-hmm. So anyway.
So did you ever get the money? What happened with that?
Okay. So I did finally, after a bunch of back and forth emails, and GoFundMe was being a dick like they do, and it was taking a really long time. We were going back and forth with emails because GoFundMe doesn't talk on the phone, they only do emails, and then my bank doesn't do emails, so it was like I couldn't, and it was, and I opened an account specific for the case so that I could keep track of every single nickel that was coming in without having to worry about my own personal finances, how it was coming in and how it was going out. Right. So, because it was a new account, then it looked weird. You know what I mean? So it was just back and forth with that. But I did ultimately get the money, for which I was so grateful. I was so grateful that I didn't even say anything about the fact that they had put those memes up on their website. Mm-hmm. And they were still, using our case to promote FAIR. I didn't even say nothing. I just said, you know what, as long as the donations keep coming in, let them do it, even though they didn't get permission, they didn't have legal permission to do it. They didn't, They didn't have, I never signed anything saying that they could use my image or anything like that. They never had permission. But I didn't make a big deal out of it at that time because I got the money and I promptly paid my lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I sent almost all of it to my lawyer. And I kept a little just so I could have a war chest for any eventuality.
Mm-hmm.
And so I still owe John quite a lot of money, but that's what I did first thing. Because, I don't want my kid to grow up and this be over and then he owes a bunch of, money and legal fees. And you know what I mean? He starts off with, hundreds of $1,000s of debt, So I did that right away. And then I don't know how long it had been after the money got into my possession, but I got a message from somebody saying that they were no longer that they couldn't make a donation because the donations had closed.
Okay. So Bayan had set up this GoFundMe and he had set so again, correct me if I'm wrong. He had set a goal of $200,000, but you had gotten some of the money early because it was like an ongoing campaign.
Right.
And then someone was trying to make a donation to support your case and the GoFundMe had been shut off.
Yes, the goal had been lowered to something like $126,000 or something like that.
Just happened to be as the amount that you had already raised.
Right. I think at that point we had raised $127,000, but the goal had been lowered to $126,000. So it looks like it was completed. Mm-hmm. It said the GoFundMe was complete and they were no longer accepting donations.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the only person who can do that is Bayan.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, wow,
Why would he do that?
Why would you do that? If your goal is to help and you have no other, you have no other agenda than just to help. And you're still, he was still at that time, they were still, the memes and stuff, all of that. And they still had my name and my image and everything on their website and all of that stuff. I had not made those videos like he asked, because I'm sorry. I just thought I felt weird about that. But he did have, quotes, whatever Barry Weiss had, she could have used those things. And I wasn't going to say anything about it because as long as the donation page was still open, okay, mm-hmm. I'll deal with it. But when that donation page closed, I just remember just sobbing, and I, called a few people and I just sobbed because I couldn't believe that, somebody would be so vindictive, And let me also just say, if I just wanted money, I could have settled a long time ago. And I'd have had money and I'd have been done with this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But my son wanted justice. And so I'm going to see to it that he gets it.
Yeah.
So it's not about money. And it's not about money for him either, because this boy is sleeping on a mattress on the floor in his apartment. He does not have a car. He takes the bus everywhere. We're not taking this money and living the high life. I had to turn down that job, and I wasn't even going to turn down the job. I was going to take it and try to, juggle this in my life and everything. And my boyfriend says, I will take care of you. I will take care of you. I will take care of Danica. Y'all come be with me. I'll take care of you. And this is more important. So all of these people all over the country are doing everything they can to help. But because I wouldn't make some videos, or because I wouldn't do what, they wanted me to do, now poo-poo on you, Gabs, like, I mean,
yeah,
it just was crazy. And you know what? They have the right to do that. They do. They have the right to do that. But I just thought that was really vindictive and ugly. I've heard, people say, well, he said you were ungrateful and all of that stuff. All right. If that's what you think, or that I didn't cooperate with them, Carlin, you raised quite a lot of money for me, and you did not have my cooperation for any of it.
You didn't even know I was doing it.
I did not even know. I woke up one morning and there was just, yippee, yippee, or whatever it is that, in my emails, when it sends me an email telling me that somebody donated.
Yeah.
I just saw all of these yippies, all of them. I'm like, what in the world is going on? So I got on. I did not know anything. You did not need my cooperation. Same thing with Deb. Deb has been raising money for me for the last few weeks, and she reached out to the Hogg family and all of that stuff. And I did not know any of that stuff until she already did it. She said she had been thinking about it, but I didn't know that she did it until she already did it.
Yeah. And this is a really key point, because no one here is accusing Fair of legal wrongdoing. We are not making that accusation. However, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And there is if Fair's mission is to be the new ACLU, then your case should be exactly the thing that they should want to support, because it's the right thing to do. I didn't need to make marketing memes with Gab's image on it in order to raise her money. In fact, the idea of it didn't even cross my mind, because that wasn't the goal. The goal was to get her the money she needed so that she could fight the case that needs to be fought. So if I is just a regular person with a YouTube channel and a Twitter platform, if I can do that and Deb can do that, why can't this organization, whose sole mission for being is to support things like this, why can't they do it?
Vivek Ramaswamy did it. A lot of other, there are other people, and they've asked me not to mention them, so I won't. But, there are other people who really came through for us.
Yeah.
And some of those people, I didn't even know that they even came through for us in the way that they did until months later. I mean, there have been anonymous small donations, but there have been some big ones too. You know what I mean? I also, there was a short period where we were with another public interest firm. We had a difference of opinion on which way to go legally. So, we decided that, working together wasn't going to be beneficial for the case. But they didn't post me up on their, and this is a big firm too. They didn't post me up on their thing. They didn't ever, ask me to do X, Y, and Z. They told me what they expected. I told them what I expected. We signed an agreement. The legal issue, there were legal issues that came up, and we had a difference of opinion on the direction those legal issues should take. So, they stepped away, and I respected that, because because if you tell me what you want up front, I can respect that. Yeah. But all of that stuff, and I used to have a recurring nightmare when all of this was going on in this week and a half, long saga with Bayard Barty. I used to have this recurring nightmare that I was a lioness and I was wounded, and my cubs were off in the distance, and there were all these hyenas around me trying to get me. Mm-hmm. And, I would wake up and I would just be soaked in sweat, and, that was that was hard. That was hard. And I was introduced to Helen Pluckrose, who got me involved with Counterweight. She listened to everything I had to say, and she got me a listener, and I was able to have some emotional support for all of it for everything through that time.
And Helen at this point, like, correct me if I'm wrong, Helen at this point is on FAIR's board of advisors.
At that point, she was, yes.
And you have Helen's permission to talk about this, just for the audience.
Yes, I asked her for permission. She did, provide me a listener, and who was great, and was very supportive. And like I said, at the time, she was on the board, and she told me, after a while, when the GoFundMe shut down, when he shut down the GoFundMe, I reached out to her again, and she said, okay, I'm going to do something about it. And I don't know what she did. I don't know what she said. I don't know who she talked to or any of that. But, a little while later, I got an email from her saying that she expressed her concern about the lack of oversight in what she called bullying, and she didn't get a response. And so she said the unethical behavior was not something that she could support, and she left FAIR.
All right. I want to put a fine point on this for everyone. So you connected with Helen Pluckrose, who was then on FAIR's board of advisors. She got you help. She got you someone to talk to, sort through all of the emotions that you were having around the stress that this entire affair was causing you. Helen then reaches out to FAIR and says something, we don't know what, but is basically asking, like, what the hell happened, and like who's responsible. And no one from FAIR was able to give her an adequate response. And so as a result of that, Helen ultimately left FAIR's board of advisors.
Yes. Yes.